Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Stadiums for Ants Stadium Interview Series, Episode 1. We have the very famous, the very affable Mr. Jeeb here with us this evening. We are going to be talking about one of, if not the most prominent and famous grounds in the entirety of the UK. That would be the famous IBROX Stadium. Mr. Jeeb, how are you doing this evening?
I'm good, mate. Thanks for having me on. I'm looking forward to talking about the stadium. So
no, it's my pleasure, man. We're really happy to have you here. So just to intro this a little bit, because this is the first episode, the idea here is obviously, the people who are watching this probably know that my passion is with stadiums and architecture and kind of miniaturizing and capturing some of these brilliant moments that we all cherish. And part of that, I believe, is in the storytelling. It's the famous moments that we've shared with our families, with our parents, with our kids, with our friends. These are the things that make these places, to me, so special and kind of hold on to these memories. So what I wanted to do is just kind of launch right into it, mate. Tell me, first and foremost, I want to know your favorite moment inside the ground, what it meant to you, what you remember from it, all of the emotions that go through your mind, and how you kind of remember those things and how it stays with you.
Jeez, right. If you were to ask any Rangers fan this, they could give you a top 20. It's very, very difficult. But if I'm going to go back to my favourite, I would need to go way back to 2003. It was my very first season as a season ticket holder. So my dad bought me my very first season ticket, and I went with him and my uncle. And I would have been 10. I would have been 10 when I got the season ticket. So I was just getting into the football. We had just won the Scottish Cup and stuff the season before, and I was getting right into the team. But at the end of this season, it was the closest title race that I think Scotland had ever had at the time. To put it into context, I think Rangers and Celtic finished on the same number of points, and it came down to goal difference. So we basically had to score more goals than Celtic. But going into the final game, I think we were only one goal ahead. So as the day went on, and as Rangers scored, then Celtic scored, then Rangers scored. We were playing at IBROX against Dunfermline, and Celtic were down in Rugby Park playing against Kilmarnock, and so it just went Rangers Celtic as it went on. It was like the 10. See, when I think back, I think the fact that I was only 10 kind of benefited me. I think now I don't think I would have been able to live with that tension. Like I think I'd be an absolute wreck. Back then when I was a kid though, I went in, I was like, well, what are you worried about? We're going to win, blah blah blah. So it comes to the end of the game, and currently we were winning 5-1 and Celtic were 4-0. So we were both winning by 4 goals, but we went into the game with a goal advantage. So in the very last minute of the game, we get a penalty.
And it was the Arteta moment.
Arteta, right? Yeah. I see. I've spoke to you about this. Right? So we get a penalty, and we're sitting here now. Celtic's game's about 2 minutes behind us, right? I don't know if they went into stoppage time in the first half or what, but they're maybe a couple of minutes behind us. So we're sitting at 5-1 knowing, right, we've won the league currently, but if our game finishes 5-1, we need to sit and watch theirs at 4-0, and if they score a fifth, then they'll win the league. So we're sitting with this penalty, and I swear to God, Mikel Arteta, he had only just signed in the summer. He won Young Player of the Year that year, so he was in his early 20s, and he steps up. All the experienced players that you had De Boer and Arveladze and all that on the pitch, but the young Spaniard steps up to take the penalty, and it was just an incredible guts and nerve just to step up and take that penalty. So I'm at the opposite end of the stadium, man. I can't remember what I was doing, but he slots the penalty into the bottom right hand corner, and we score. So 6-1, and then our game finishes. So we're in the stadium, we're singing, and the final whistle goes and everybody cheers, but we're like, right, what's happening?
Right.
Have we won? If we know what? So the players are all walking towards the dugout, like, what's going on? So we all get told, right, it's 4-0 down to Rugby Park, there's 2 minutes left, they need to score twice. But the manager, but you can see Barry Ferguson, the Rangers captain, he's starting to get a bit excited, and then he just stops straight away, puts the head down, and the manager's standing there as cool as anything. Obviously told them, no celebrating until this is finished. So a steward walks up to our manager, and you the camera angle, you can only see the manager's face. So the steward has obviously said it's finished, and the manager just, it's finished, and that's it. The stadium just absolutely goes up in an uproar. It was a world record as well. We'd won our 50th title. We were the first football team to ever hit 50 league titles. And you know, one of the weird memories that I have of this is I don't think I'd been behaving very well. I was just a wee daft 10-year-old boy in the morning, right? So I think in the morning my dad had said, "You're grounded. You're no allowed out the night after the football." And I just remember, because we were all happy. My dad was like, "I'll unground you. You can go out and play football when you get back. Just see the stupid things that stick in your head." So, but magic day, and I got to spend that day with my dad and my uncle as well. So it was, I think if you get 100 Rangers fans on, certainly around about my age, I think over 90 of them would say that that's probably one of their highlights.
Brilliant. And of course, that was before the advent of the smartphone, so you couldn't be getting the alternative score while you're sitting there in the ground.
If you ever see highlights of that game, if you ever see, having said that, I mean, the connections in football stadiums on I don't know what it's like now, obviously, because I think they've got Wi-Fi and stuff, but I never used to get an internet signal when I went to IBROX in the past few years. But if you ever watch the highlights of that game, at the beginning of the game, it always pans in on this one guy. He's wearing these dark glasses, and he's sitting just holding this radio with a big antenna sticking out. He's just sitting holding that, and I'm like, that's obviously, that was the way it was. But I don't know how folk can remember. I remember just being at that game, and I remember a fan a few rows in front of me standing up screaming, "Alan Thompson just missed a penalty, so Celtic had a penalty down there." Do you know? So we were getting these updates, and it was weird because you could feel the tension in the stadium, because of course throughout the majority of the day we were just ahead, but there was one point when we were 3-1 up that they went 3-0 up. So they were actually in pole position.
Big tension.
Do you know? So that kind of started to feel. So everybody just kind of, after celebrating a goal, and then 10 minutes later, you're, "Oh, wait a minute, we need another one." It was weird. It was a really weird experience. I hope it's nothing I need to experience again. Hopefully going into the final game of the season, we're about 20 points clear or something. I don't know, man. But that was the tension that day. I swear to God, man.
But you say that now, but at the same time, we're sat here having this conversation about that moment.
It makes it better.
It kind of does. I mean, it might shave a couple of years off the end of the life, but these are the moments that it's all about, right? Like that's the whole thing. And I think it's so interesting that the little things that stick in your mind, like, you know, being grounded and then being ungrounded because the football team won. It's like, that's what makes it so special, right?
Yeah,
it's those little pieces that always stick with us. And I think that's exceptional to me. Yeah. That's absolutely exceptional.
It was funny as well, because only a few weeks ago, my mum sent me a few pictures. She had found a box of photographs, and there was a picture of me and my dad in the stadium that day, and it's a picture I've never ever seen. So you're talking over 17 years ago, and I've never seen that photo, and I seen it that day.
I think you'll have to send it to me so that I can use it for the icon for this video.
I'll say, I don't know if you want to put it this way. I'm glad I grew into my teeth, man, like when I see that picture as well.
All right. This is really good. So obviously that's going to lead into the next question. I want to hear your favorite moment. You didn't have to have been in the ground for this, but if you were, that's great. Your favorite moment for Rangers at IBROX in the old firm.
Ooh, right, okay. See, at IBROX, that's hanging me off. I was going to speak about. I
the
was going to speak
critical
about
component.
Helicopter Sunday there, but that wasn't at IBROX, so I can't.
Well, I guess it
speak of
was at
that.
the end.
Aye, well, we
It
ended up
wasn't
at
in
IBROX.
IBROX, but at the end, it was kind of at IBROX,
Right, Old Firm moment.
Yeah.
Need to be in my lifetime. The best Old Firm game I've ever been. See, this it's quite difficult for me. I used to work in. It used to be called the Mega Store. So
Mm-hmm.
I used to work in the shop at IBROX. It was my very first job. I was 16, and I got my very first job in the Mega Store. So I used to go out the back, like on our lunch breaks would always be during the game because the shop was quiet. So
Sure.
I used to go out the back and we would stand like at the stadium and we would watch the game live. So I've been in the stadium for a lot of Old Firm games. I've been there when we've won. I've been there when we've lost. But I mean, if it doesn't compare to actually being there, like having a ticket and going. I've been to quite a few. My favourite one. God, that's a difficult question. Right. I would go back to probably 2007. It was just a random game. It was the first Old Firm game of the season, and Celtic were the current champions. They actually won the league this year. This game, I don't know what it was about this game. I think it's just the memories. Just they came to Ibrox and we won 3-0, and we absolutely battered them off the park. We really played them off the park. We finished the game with the fact, I mean, you know, that way that you get really petty. You're 3 goals up, you get really petty, and you start cheering every pass. So every pass, it's going, hey. But I remember it was me and my dad were right next to the Celtic supporters, so we were getting them at tight. We were like, you know, but
giving it to them.
You know, but I just remember that game. That game was just. Just for the first whistle, we just absolutely battered them. You know, it's still. I mean, I'll be honest. It's quite difficult to think of that season that we came out. It was the season that we got to the FA Cup final. So our games, our fixture list towards the end of the season was just mental. I think we played like 3 games in 6 days or something like that. At one point towards the end, or it was 4 and 8 or something like that. It was mental. Our fixture congestion at the end of that game, and it just got too much for some of the players. I think some of the players must have played about 60 games that season. It was incredible, and we just missed out in the title. But that game was incredible. I still to this day I still watch highlights of that game quite often. So I do.
And who were you there with? Were you there with
I was with my dad.
Again?
I was with my dad. No, my uncle wasn't there that day. I can't actually remember why. I was there with my dad. And one of my dad's mates. I can't remember why my uncle wasn't there, but it was phenomenal. I remember actually I was late. We went in, we walked in, and we got in about the 3rd or 4th minute in the match, and it was one of the things. I hadn't been to many Old Firm games before this. I'd been to 2, and we'd lost and we'd won, so I had experienced both. And as soon as we walked into the stadium, Celtic had a corner. But the corner wasn't getting to it, so we walked in and the fans were all shouting, and there was just this barmy in the box. All the players are pushing one another and grabbing one another, and we didn't know what was walking in, so we just walk in and we just start, oh, what's going on here? Like, you know, and so we're looking about and we're like, what's happening? But it was just a stupid. Like, I think somebody had niggled somebody and they were kind of hanging about in the boats. But you walk in and it's just that like instant atmosphere. It's just see the noise like in a ground like that when you score. It's odd because it sounds like the loudest you've ever heard the stadium. But at that time, Celtic had 7,500 seats in in one of your stands. So you're talking there was only about 43,000 Rangers fans, whereas on a European night there would be 50. So it's a big difference, and you would think that would make such a difference in the noise. But when you score an Old Firm date, it just sounds like the loudest thing that you've ever heard. It's weird. I don't know if it's just because that everything about you is just happening. It's just incredible.
No, of course. So that actually it brings up an interesting question that I didn't have prepared. So I'm going to do this one off the cuff, if that's all right with you. I remember all of the 2 or 3 stadiums that I spent a lot of my childhood in. And most of those moments were with my grandpa. My dad. So my dad's a sports fan, but he's not. He doesn't like crowds, so we never went to a lot of games together. So all the games that I always went to was with my grandpa. My grandpa had season tickets to everybody in town, and we went to everything. And I always remember, because we were season ticket holders, we would always go through the same entry point, right? It was never, today we're going to enter on this side of the stadium, and the next week we go to a different side of the stadium. It was always at the same entrance. And, you kind of get to know the people at the gate and the people kind of patrolling the areas. Is there anything special for you about the entry into the stadium, getting to your seat, when you get that first glimpse of the pitch on a nice bright day and it's green and gorgeous? Like, talk to me a little bit about like the specific experiences that the architecture brings for you.
For me, that's probably something that has more of an impact on you when you're a kid. I think I can still remember going to IBROX when I was young. It was even before I had my season ticket. My dad would still take me to games like here and there, and I can remember I always ran ahead to go up the steps, and then I would just stand at the top of the steps and look at the pitch. And just that looking at the pitch was just that would just kind of, I don't know, as you fall in love with a stadium, like you really do. You just I've actually one of my friends had these engagement party in the IBROX suite, which is one of the hospitality suites. That's where I got the name to do the podcast that I had started that I don't do anymore. So it was the IBROX suite podcast, and it was because of that suite. So he had his engagement party in there. It was just a random Saturday night, and towards the end of the night, just a few of us snuck out. And we just went out, and you went into the stadium. Now it was pitch black. There wasn't a light on. The only thing that was on was the lights that were on Help the Grass. So, but I've got a picture in this complete empty stadium, and it's just, see, just standing there, like I could have stood there for hours. You just stand there like on the railing, leaning on the railings, and you just look about, and it's just, you start to you look at the goals, and it just, there's no nets in the goal, so you're just looking at it, and you just start to think of specific goals that have been scored there, and you think, God, that was there, and I just think, I imagine I was sitting here when that happened, and imagine I was here when that happened. It's just all that stuff just goes through your head. It's like, I'll tell you one. I went to the IBROX suite about 2 years ago, and at the end of it, similar to that, we went, and it was during a game. So we went out, we watched the game, we came back in, had a few drinks, and just before we left, we went out into the stadium. Some of the lights were still on, but people were leaving. So I don't know if you know, there's a ex-Rangers player, he's really popular through IBROX, Derek Johnson. He's really, really famous. He was 16-year-old, and he scored a cup final winning header against Celtic when he was 16. So he was at Rangers for years. He's a legend throughout the club, and he was leaving the stadium. He was walking around the tarmac, and me and my family were up in the next tier, and I spotted it was him. So Derek Johnson. So I'm shouting DJ, and I'm waving at him. I'm like, DJ, and he's like, he looks at us and he goes, "Have you not got a home to go to?" And I'm right, because this is at about 6:30 at night. The game finished at like 4:45. Right, so he goes, "Have you not got a home to go to?" And I just looked around, and I'm like, "DJ, you should know this is home."
Yes.
And he's like the home of football. I'm like, exactly, but that's it. I've got photos for that as well with my family and that, and you could just stand there for hours. It's like there's this like weird echo in that when you speak in an empty stadium. I just love it. It's like my home.
Yeah. So this is. I'm really glad that you said that, because it speaks so much to, my passion and why I'm doing all of this. It's because of it. So as an architect, as an architecture student, we always talk about human experience inside the built environment. That's something that we focus on quite a bit. And it occurs to me, it doesn't matter how beautiful a building may be, or how new or what design aesthetic is used. If it's something like your home or an apartment building or an office building, you can develop beautiful memories in those places. But when you move out, those memories go. And I feel like a stadium for all of us is unique in that regard, because those memories still live there. Yeah. And it's one of the only types of architecture in the world that you can say that about.
Yeah.
And I think it's so special to hear these stories and to hear what stays with you, because it's all the stories are a little bit different for all of us. The moments are different for all of us, but the overarching point is the same, right?
Yeah.
I will always hold those memories with my grandpa, just like you'll always hold these memories, and that's the coolest part about the whole thing to me.
Yeah, that is its
So,
magic.
Yeah, it is, and it's special for you, and it's special for me, but it's special for everyone in their own way, for their home stadium, right? If you love your club, we all have these moments, and it's the thing that makes sports fans, it's the thing that the foundation upon which it's all built, because it all starts when we're kids, right? For all of us. That's the cool part.
Yep.
So my last question is kind of two parts. Okay. I want to know, architecturally, your favorite part of the stadium. It could be inside or outside. But then I do want you to talk about, what does it feel like? What are the things that you remember on a non-game day when you happen to drive or walk past?
I think every single Rangers fan would say the exact same. The front of the building is just incredible. The brickwork in the front of the stadium is just beautiful. I think it's the most beautiful stadium in the world, and nobody's going to convince me otherwise. But
nor should anyone try.
It is. It's just, see, like, the only thing is that there's a road that goes right past Edmondson Drive. A road goes right past the entrance of the stadium. So you don't really walk up to it being able to see it. You kind of go in at the side. That's the only thing I would say, because there's a football pitch right across from it. If there was a way to just like walk into it so that you could see that, but I still get goosebumps walking up to IBROX. I just like I love going to IBROX. Funnily enough, I think I've told you this already, but my uncle that I speak about, my uncle actually passed away in the summer. I think I've told you that already, but I think it was the day before his funeral. I was off work, and I knew, obviously, my dad, it was his brother, so I knew he would be really, really down. So I phoned my dad, and I was like, I'm going to drive out to the stadium. Do you want to come? And he's like, aye. He's like, I want to get out of the house. And that was what we done that day. And there wasn't a game on or anything. We just drove out to the stadium. We walked. We went into the shop. We walked about the stadium and that. And obviously, it was a place that we used to kind of go together anyway. But like, for me, it's just being able to have a place like that. That you can kind of go and you can speak, or remember we sat in there. If we went in that turnstile and we sat there that day, and then we went there and we sat there that day and stuff. But you always, in terms of the stadium, I think the stadium's beautiful. There's bits that need tweaked. There's bits that need cleaned up and repaired. But the brickwork at the front, it will never be touched. It's a listed building, so it will never be touched. And even when they built the club deck, I've seen pictures out with the club deck on top. Even when they built the club deck, I just think it made it look so much smarter. I just love it.
It's as far as I understand it, it's perhaps the only stadium in the UK that has 2 listed stands, correct?
I'm not 100% sure, actually. You might have looked into the architectural side of it a wee bit more than I have. I don't know.
I've heard it's the only one. There's a couple of other ones that have a listed stand. like Highbury, for example, is not a stadium anymore, but they've kept the whole facade when they turned it into the condo units that they made. Right. So that, and it was the same architect that built Highbury, of course. Yeah. So that the front of that stand is still there, and it still says Arsenal Stadium and everything like that, and it's listed. But I believe that that's the only stand that's listed, and IBROX is unique in that regard because I believe both stands are listed.
Yeah, there you go. You've taught me something about my own stadium.
Well, architect, what can you do? A little bit of research never hurt anybody. Well, I shouldn't say that, because I lose quite a bit of sleep actually doing research, so maybe it does hurt somebody. Anyways, my good friend, I really appreciate you coming on. This was absolutely wonderful. Do you have anything else, any other last memories or anything that's come to mind that you want to share on the way out?
No, it's just one thing I was thinking about in terms of atmosphere. It's not necessarily about the number that you've got in the stadium, like the number of fans. I've been to Parkhead. I went to a Rangers game at Parkhead, and unfortunately we lost. but I was obviously in with the Rangers fans, and that's when they scored. It is loud. Do you know what? It is loud, but I think even quite a lot of players that have went to Parkhead have said it's the loudest atmosphere they've ever heard. Not, but a lot of people have said that IBROX is the loudest atmosphere, and it's odd considering our stadium holds like 10,000 less seats than theirs. But I think it's because of the way the stadium's built. I mean, if you look, I think you've done Old Trafford, haven't you?
Yep.
We'll see how the three stands are all one level and then it goes down.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's the exact same as theirs. Whereas ours is like the same all the way around, and the only gaps are at the corners of the main stand. So it's almost as if like,
but even those are really small gaps.
You know, so it's almost as if when there's that noise in there, it just vibrates. It's got nowhere to go. Do you know what I mean? So it's like it just creates an unbelievable noise. And if just one more in terms of like atmosphere and like how loud it can be. I remember being at a Champions League game in 2007. We were playing the German champions at the time, Stuttgart, and we scored a penalty. And right after we scored the penalty, like, I don't know, I'm sure fans will understand this, but sometimes when you're shouting and you're screaming and you're singing so much, you sometimes just get really tired and you just kind of stop for a second. You just need to take a few deep breaths and just like, oh, I need to bring myself back down here. And I can remember after we went 2-1 up, I had to stop. And I stood, I was in the Broomlin rear, right up the very back, and I just stopped. And I wasn't jumping and my feet were on the ground and the stadium was doing the bouncy. So there's videos there online, but I swear to God, see, just standing still, feeling that, you could feel the stand vibrating, and it was just, honestly, you could just feel it through your full body, and it was incredible. And I thought to myself at that time, I was like, I'm glad that I hope the architecture is good because I'm not wanting this stand to go anywhere. But it was, I mean, see the vibration on your feet for it. It was incredible.
Well, you know what? We're gonna tease one, maybe not the very next episode, but that brings up one little thing that'll lead quite well into one of our upcoming episodes. It doesn't have to be Rangers. It doesn't have to be at IBROX. What's, in your opinion, the greatest pogo, the bounce? What's the greatest pogo you've ever seen? Anywhere in the world. Well, you can see it on TV. Doesn't matter.
Nah, it's got to be Rangers, isn't it, mate? It's got to be when the Rangers fans do the bouncy. There's no bigger than that. There's no bigger or better.
I gotta tell you, and as you guys know, I have not had the pleasure of attending a game at IBROX, although that is
not yet.
That's absolutely going to change next season, which I'm very much looking forward to, as I'm sure you can imagine. However, I did have the pleasure of attending the Westfalenstadion in Dortmund 2 seasons ago. When that yellow wall does their pogo,
yeah, I can.
I've never seen anything like it. 26,000 people in the steepest stand you can imagine, all bouncing at once, and I was sat all the way on the other side of the ground. I was worried about the architecture.
Yeah, I can imagine.
That was something to behold, my friend.
It's on going to Dortmund Stadium's on my bucket list. It needs.
We're gonna go.
To go. Yeah,
no. We're gonna go. We're gonna take a trip together, and we're gonna go. As a matter of fact, I was thinking about this as well. So we'll end with this tonight. Anybody here who's watching, you may not know, but I am moving abroad in the summer. I'm going to be setting up shop in Amsterdam. And what I would really like to be able to do is to put together a little grounds hopping club. So anybody who wants to join our ground hopping club, we're going to go all over the continent. We're going to go all over the UK. We're going to see the greatest teams, the greatest grounds, and all the greatest clubs. And it'll be amazing. We'll have a little travel team.
Sounds quality.
It'll be a good time. I assure you of that. And we'll make some friends along the way, which is the best part, right?
Yeah.
Well, sir, I really appreciate you coming on. This was absolutely fantastic. Episode 1, Stadium Interview Series is in the books. Give us a like, give us a shout on social media if you enjoyed it. Jeeb, you want to shout out your social media channels just so everybody knows where to find you if they don't already?
I'm on Twitter at Jeeb1872, so it's just spelled GEEB, as you can see on the screen, 1872. Hi, you can find me on Twitter.
Beautiful. Beautiful. And you guys all know where to find me. So give us a shout if you like the episode. Please share it. And we'll be back very shortly with the next episode. And I'm not going to tell you what it is yet, but I promise you it'll be a good one because we've got a really great guest coming up next too. So thank you very much for watching. Hit us with a like, hit us with a share, and we'll speak to you in the next one. Cheers.
Bye, guys.